Good morning and welcome to the 12th edition of Tata Literature Live, the Mumbai International Lit Fest 2021, co-sponsored by Tata Steel and Tata Projects and powered by Godrej. This session is part of the Little Fest. There's a story everywhere. Coming up right now is the session titled All Aboard, about the stories of libraries in places you would not have thought of. Did you ever think that there would be a library in freezing Antarctica or even in space? Gosh, I had no idea. And we're really lucky to have with us today the two authors of the incredible book, Spaceship to the Universe, the story of libraries, to tell us some of those stories. Author Anuradha Jagalur, who joins us from Reading, England, is a teacher and has published articles in Kannada, translated between Kannada and English, and has edited several English manuscripts. And co-author Shruthi Rao, currently in San Francisco, studied to be an energy engineer and worked as a software professional until her, and I quote, story gobbling monster daughter pulled out the writer lurking inside her. Talking to them today is 13-year-old Avni Arlekar, a school student in Mumbai. But before we bring our panel on to begin the discussion, let's take a look at some fascinating libraries around the world.
Thank you. I've always loved my school library and the Akshara Library in Mumbai. I remember that the highlight of my first day in third grade was that my school library was on the same floor as my classroom. So I'm very excited to talk to the authors of the book, Spaceship to the Universe, the story of libraries. This book is all about the unusual, ancient, and treasured libraries of the world. It includes some of the oldest known libraries to libraries started during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So I found this title very interesting. Can you tell us what made you choose this name for the book?
Okay. Thank you, Avni. Lovely to see you. Lovely to be here. The title was taken from a statement by Isaac Asimov, one of the most famous popular science writers of the last century. And he, whilst telling how libraries benefited him, he said, a library isn't just a library, it's a spaceship that will take you to the farthest reaches of the universe, a time machine that will take you to the far past and the far future, a teacher that knows more than any human being, a friend that will amuse you and console you, and most of all, a gateway to a better and happier and more useful life. And we thought this was a wonderful title, and it's taken from Asimov's quote.
So there are over 100 libraries mentioned in this book. What were some of the different ways you all researched the information you all needed?
So, a part of it, a part of the research was done online by actually finding new libraries and current libraries, especially during COVID. But a large part of the research was through books. We borrowed books from our libraries and we studied them and we found a lot of stuff in them.
So when I read about the Library of the Congress in Washington, DC and the British Library in London, my first thought was that I wanted to visit them. Which were the libraries that you visited or felt like visiting while reading the book? While writing it, sorry.
I have visited the British Library, and in fact, the Singapore Library that we have written about, though it wasn't, though the children's section wasn't the way it is now. But while researching, I really wanted to become a child again and be in one of the Nordic libraries that we have described towards the end, the children's libraries in Scandinavia. Yeah, that's what I would have loved to visit.
So,
As for me, I wanted to visit all the libraries of the past. Alexandria, Ashurbanipal's library, Nalanda. I wanted to travel back in time and visit all those.
so I've seen mobile libraries where the books are kept in a small bus or a van, and they're driven to different areas. In this book, you've mentioned many unique mobile libraries, especially for children, which use animals instead of buses and vans. So can you tell us more about those?
Yeah, in many countries around the world, the terrain and surroundings are such that buses or even permanent libraries wouldn't be feasible. So in Kenya, for example, there are nomadic tribes where, the tribe itself moves from place to place. So there's no question of a permanent library there. So the government has a national library, and the national library has these camel mobile libraries which take books to children wherever they have camped at the time. And there are also others in Colombia where, like I said, the terrain is such that cars and jeeps wouldn't work, and donkeys carry the library on their backs wherever the children are.
So there's an entire chapter in this book about the libraries that were destroyed. I felt really, really horrible when I read about those. So how do y'all think that we can make people value libraries more?
So when you say value libraries, there are a lot of levels. So it's like you and I will naturally value libraries because we are lovers of books. But how about governments, and how about people in power? So what happened in many of those libraries and that were destroyed is that people who were conquering the land um, burnt it down in order to kind of erase the culture and the knowledge and kind of um, make the people and they were conquering feel a sense of loss. So, and another reason people destroy libraries is because they are afraid of what those people are going to do with that knowledge, because after all, knowledge is power, right? So when somebody is afraid of knowledge, that is when the destruction happens. And so how do we prevent that from happening is, what a library can do is actually digitize and back up libraries. And but apart from that, if a power or a regime wants to destroy knowledge, it's not something that you can do um, as a layperson, as you and me. I don't know what we can do. What do you think, Anu?
And you covered it. Actually, it's like you said, it's willful destruction. In that case, what can we do? All we can do is do whatever we can to protect the libraries. Those who value libraries, they will do their best anyway. And if you're talking about accidental destruction, that's a whole different idea. And I'm sure librarians and others are doing a lot, thinking about it all the time, about how to safeguard libraries.
From all the libraries in the book, which is your favorite? Which is your favorite category of libraries and why?
Go on.
Okay. Perhaps my favorite library is the one I use locally because I gain from it. But like I said to a previous question, the children's libraries that we have written about are some of my favorites. And what was the second part? Sorry, did you ask?
Categories of libraries, ancient libraries, libraries during conflict zone, libraries for refugees, mobile libraries. Which are your favorite category?
The category in the book that you're talking about, the libraries that were in the conflict zones, you know, the indomitable spirit of these librarians or lay people who wanted to protect and preserve the libraries, those are my favorites.
So y'all have dedicated an entire chapter to these libraries in times of war and conflict, like during the world wars in the Gaza Strip, Afghanistan and Syria. How did the two of you feel while researching about these libraries?
So I was extremely moved and disturbed also at times and what happened is when I was researching those libraries, I used to sometimes forget I was actually collecting information for a book, and I started reading and and online, and you know how it is, one link to another link, so there were many times I completely forgot and lost myself in that maze, and I used to come away uh, uh, feeling a sense of awe. What kind of human spirit is that which makes them want to read books and want to safeguard books at the risk of their own lives? What? And when they're starving, when they're hungry, when they're cold, and they still want to read and protect books. Some of them are like dodging bullets and shells in order to protect it. So my respect for humankind kind of shot up, which is a very rare thing that happens, because all the news that we hear, uh, it makes you feel despairing for humankind. But all these stories, it made me feel, we are wonderful. Some of us are wonderful, at least.
I remember reading about the Saraswati Mahal library and the book of shlokas inside it, the Shabda Chintamani. So when they read from the left to the right, they tell the story of the Ramayana, and from the right to the left, it is the story of Krishna. And that really stuck in my head. Is there anything that jumped out at you like that during your research?
I don't know. I mean, if you consider the kind of books,
not necessarily kind of books, just a fact.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the fact that at one time, if you had to have a book, you had to copy it down yourself. That was something unbelievable. But still, people were so knowledgeable. It means they spent so much time copying, and if you had to possess a book, you had to borrow it from somebody or go sit somewhere and copy the entire thing. So the process of acquiring a book meant you had actually read it. That idea was very impressive. Yeah, that's one of those things that has remained.
While I read the book, I came across topics which I had read about and heard about previously. Were there any topics that you had read about before but had not thought about in the context of libraries?
Almost everything actually. Almost all the chapters, all the subjects, for instance, all the classification systems, like the Dewey Decimal System and all that. So all that I had learned a little about it, in the sense, as much as in a library. I mean, you enter a library and there are all these strange numbers. I never bothered to find out why. And now I actually found out why. And I also found that it's not the best way of classification. And I found so many, as um, and both of us researched, we found so many different types of classifications, and the every classification system has some advantages and some disadvantages, and it was an eye-opening experience. And also, after all this kind of classification, we come across something like an indigenous library, uh, which has characters and alphabets which are not in English at all. So how are those books classified? What order are they classified? So there are so many aspects to a simple thing like classification. So that was something I hadn't thought about at all before coming here. And I'm sure Anu also has quite a few things like that to share.
Yeah, I can't think of any at the moment. I was totally absorbed in what you said. I completely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, endless number of things that were eye-openers. And again, coming back to indigenous libraries, the protection of knowledge, that was something I hadn't given much thought about. So who does, I mean, the knowledge that generations of indigenous people have collected, now, I mean, who does it belong to? I mean, is it open now to the entire world? Can anybody make use of it? We have discussed that. So these are all the things that they need to worry about. And these were all extremely thought-provoking and taught us a lot.
So, I feel that special libraries for indigenous tribes will sort of separate them from other people, because only the indigenous tribes and people who may be studying about them will be visiting those libraries. So the number of people who visit the library won't be very large. So they'll be kind of separated from people who visit the other libraries. What do you think about that?
That's an excellent point, Avni. I that is one of the disadvantages. So there are aspects to everything, Actually, making a separate indigenous library will actually, like you said, what about an ordinary person like you and me? I mean, a person who might stumble upon a book on an indigenous subject, which I might not find anymore. So that is something that is it's a larger systemic issue, and I think the library system has to change, and in order to accommodate everybody and every kind of requirement. But until that happens, you need a space for people to kind of call their own. So, yeah.
What do you think, Ms. Jagalur?
Yeah, I agree with what Shruthi says, that for the time being, I mean, they have to be, their languages have to be protected and they have to be catered to. So you have to pay special attention. In fact, we should not even talk about our paying attention. You should, I mean, they have to take care of themselves and everyone has to support them. So initially, it will have to be a separate library catering to these indigenous languages and groups and so on. But they should be accommodated within the mainstream libraries and it should be part of us. We should learn about them as well, isn't it? We should be exposed to knowledge and their requirements and so on.
Are there any libraries for differently able people that you all came across while you all were researching?
Yeah,
There was one in Burundi, right?
correct. Children's
So,
library.
yeah, there was one for children who can't see. So that I thought was was a lovely idea. Anything to add, Anu? I think you were the one who.
In Burundi, the case was that, like it used to be in India, knowledge was communicated orally. Okay, there were no written books, no knowledge, and you know how it was in India. Also, I mean, all over the world, knowledge was communicated from generation to generation through stories and so. So in Burundi, actually, it was particularly special for people who couldn't hear, actually.
Sorry, my mistake.
So for children who couldn't hear, they were completely cut off from the knowledge passed on from their parents or the previous generation. So books became a special necessity, and I mean, more so for them than for people like us. So library was important, and the libraries should be there. Because, I suppose Shruti thought of blind people because, I mean, there are always braille libraries, though we didn't especially write about them. There are sections in libraries which cater to people with visual impairment.
So, would either of you like to read out a paragraph from your favorite chapter?
Okay, sure. Yeah, there are quite a few favorite chapters, but like we discussed, the conflict. So, can you not hear me? I can hear the noise. Yeah. So we were talking about libraries in conflict zones, and that really impressed us. So I want to look um, that. Sorry, I had moved away from. Uh, yeah. Okay. So in the Gaza Strip, you must have heard about the Palestinian conflict. So Sakana Girls' School in the Gaza Strip was
Say that
working.
again, Johnson.
It had taken in students from other schools destroyed during the war, but it had no library. In 2017, a group of girls decided to build one for their school. But how? Where would the money come from? UNICEF and a few other organizations granted the Sakina school 300 US dollars. The girls went shopping for books, but found that they could buy only a handful of them, and they were left with no money for furniture or shelves. So they got creative. They painted wooden crates and buckets with bright colors and fixed them on the walls as shelves. They converted old rubber tires into furniture. And other NGOs donated more books. So in 2017, the schoolgirls opened the library to the public. I found the story incredible because they are constantly in fear of war, bombardment, and there's always the fear that their school would also be destroyed. And they have taken in students from other schools and young children. They have come together and salvaged whatever they could and built a library. So these are the inspiring stories that um, that keep us going, isn't it?
Since the two of y'all don't live near each other, what was the experience of writing a book without any in-person conversation?
So the thing is, we are aunt and niece, and we have um, we have well talked to each other all my life, rather. So and we have also worked together on a translation together. So it wasn't hard at all for us to uh, go on and work with each other on a book like this. It was quite simple, actually. So I could go on about it, but I we are reaching the end of the session, so that's the short answer.
It was really nice to speak to both of you about your book. So for all those who are watching this, please try to help build libraries so that the people who don't have access to books for any reason will also experience the joy that a library brings to everybody. I hope you all read this book and enjoy reading it as much as I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Avni.
Thank you, Avni. It was lovely speaking to you.
Thank you so much for that delightful conversation, Anuradha, Shruti, and Avni. And audience, don't forget, you can buy this book, Spaceship to the Universe, from landmarkexcite.com. You'll find the link in our tatalitlive.in. Oh, and right now at noon, the next session for the Little Festival is beginning, Karari Tales, sniffing out stories, storytelling with songs and drama. Thank you to our panelists and to you, our audience, and also to our partners that have made this possible. Tata Literature Live, co-sponsored by Tata Steel and Tata Projects and powered by Godrej, continues with many more sessions. You can find the schedule on tatalitlive.in. With that, I'll sign off now. Catch you at the next session.